The security gate slammed shut so hard the glass rattled, and the sound tore through the lobby like a gunshot. Everyone turned. Phones froze mid-scroll. A woman's breath hitched somewhere near the elevators. At the center of it all stood a small figure in a faded maintenance jacket, one hand still gripping a mop handle, the other raised instinctively, as if surrendering to a crime no one had bothered to explain. What would you do if the system decided you were guilty before you ever spoke? Her name was Laura Bennett, and at that moment, every eye in the building was telling her the same thing. You do not belong here. The lobby of Blackwell Tower smelled like polished marble and expensive cologne, the kind that lingered long after the men wearing it had gone home to their quiet suburbs. Laura worked nights. She always did. She arrived when the power players left, when the building exhaled and pretended it was empty. She liked it that way. Fewer questions, fewer looks, less noise, less. But tonight, the noise had found her. 2 security officers stood 10 feet away, hands hovering near their belts, not touching, but close enough to make a point. Their faces were tight, professional, already bored. To them, this was procedure. To Laura, it felt like being erased in public. A young analyst whispered something sharp to her friend. Another man shook his head slowly, the way people do when they think they're watching someone get what they deserve. Laura's eyes stayed down. Not because she was ashamed, because she had learned over years that looking up only invited more damage. Somewhere above them, 30 floors of glass and steel held their breath. In the top office, the lights were still on. Marcus Hale stood at the window, jacket off tie, loosened one hand pressed flat against the cold glass. From up there, the city looked calm, clean, ordered. Down below, his company was bleeding, $7.8 million gone, not misfiled, not misplaced, stolen. Quietly, intelligently, and the timing was surgical. Marcus had built Blackwell systems from a folding table and a borrowed laptop. He had survived hostile takeovers, regulatory threats, partners who smiled while sharpening knives behind his back. He did not believe in accidents. He believed in patterns. The security report lay open on his desk. Footage timestamps circled in red. A name typed too neatly at the bottom, Laura Bennett. Night maintenance. Access corridor proximity. No criminal record. No prior flags. The kind of employee no one remembered 5 minutes after passing her in the hall, and that Marcus thought was exactly what made her dangerous. Or exactly what made her useful to someone else. He exhaled through his nose, slow, controlled. The building hummed softly around him, servers running data, flowing a digital bloodstream he had sworn to protect. Back in the lobby, Laura felt the hum too. It vibrated through the mop handle, through the soles of her worn shoes. She could hear her own pulse in her ears, steady but loud. The older guard, Frank O'Neill, stood off to the side, saying nothing. His jaw worked once, like he was chewing on words he didn't think anyone wanted to hear. He had seen Laura every night for almost 2 years. Had seen her wipe down desks she would never sit at. Had seen her fold lost scarves with careful hands, as if the owners might feel that respect later. He cleared his throat. No one looked at him. She was in the West Corridor at 12:47 in the morning, one of the officers said, reading from a tablet. Flat voice. Clean delivery. That's within the window of the breach. Laura swallowed. She remembered the time. She remembered because the vending machine on 14 had eaten her last dollar, and she had stood there longer than she should have, staring at the flickering lights, calculating whether hunger or pride would win. She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. The words felt stuck behind something heavier than fear. Memory. Marcus turned from the window. His reflection looked older than he felt. He picked up his phone. The call went through on the first ring. "Bring her up," he said. His voice was calm, almost gentle. That made it worse. The elevator ride was silent. Laura stood, with her hands folded in front of her mop, left behind like evidence. The numbers climbed. 10, 15, 20. Each floor felt like another layer of air thinning. She could smell the office before the doors opened. Leather, coffee, something sharp and metallic. Marcus Hale did not sit behind his desk. He stood, when she entered, studying her, the way surgeons study scans. Not unkind. Precise. Laura felt suddenly aware of everything about herself. The frayed cuff on her sleeve. The cleaning solution dried into her knuckles. The faint tremor she could not stop. "Do you know why you're here?" Marcus asked. She shook her head once. He nodded as if that confirmed something. $7.8 million disappeared from my company tonight, he said. He did not raise his voice. He did not need to. And your name is the only one that doesn't make sense. Laura's chest tightened. She forced herself to breathe. In, out, slow. I didn't take anything she said. Her voice surprised her. It was steadier than she felt. Marcus watched her closely. Her eyes did not dart. Her shoulders did not rise in defense. She looked tired. Not guilty, not innocent. Just worn down in a way money could not fake. "That's not what I asked," he said. He walked back to his desk and opened a drawer. Laura heard the soft slide of metal. When he turned, he was holding a black card between two fingers. It looked unreal, heavy, final. He set it on the desk, did not push it toward her yet. "People reveal more when they think they're choosing," Marcus said, "not when they're accused." Laura stared at the card. Her breath caught. The room felt smaller. Louder. "You have one day," he continued. "Use it, or don't. Either way, I'll learn something." She looked up then, really looked at him, saw the lines at the corners of his eyes that came from vigilance, not age. Saw a man who had been betrayed enough times to mistake control for safety. "Why me?" she asked quietly. Marcus' mouth tightened. "Because everyone else already knows how to play this game," he said. "And you don't." The words landed between them, sharp and dangerous. Laura felt the weight of 1,000 invisible judgments pressing down on her spine. She thought of the trailer back in Indiana, the one her mother refused to leave even after the pipes froze. She thought of the letter in her pocket she hadn't opened yet. Past due stamped in red. She thought of how tired she was of being careful. Marcus slid the card across the desk. It stopped inches from her hand. "Show me," he said. Outside, the city kept moving. Inside, something had already begun to crack. Laura Bennett stepped out into the night air with the black card burning in her pocket like a live wire. The revolving doors sighed behind her, sealing the building back into its artificial calm. But the street was loud, unforgiving. Tires hissed on wet asphalt. A bus roared past coughing diesel. Somewhere, a siren wailed and faded like it couldn't decide who deserved saving tonight. Laura stood there for a moment, unmoving, as if the ground itself might ask her a question next. She did not go home. Instead, she walked. Past the bank on the corner, with its lights still on for no one. Past the coffee shop that closed at 6, but never took the sign down. She walked until her legs burned, and the card felt heavier with every step. Marcus Hale's voice echoed in her head. One day, use it or don't. She hated that part. The choice. Accusations were easier. They came with clear edges. Choices just sat there waiting to expose you. Her phone buzzed. She flinched, then pulled it out. A missed call from an Indiana number she knew too well. She didn't listen to the voicemail. Not yet. She leaned against the brick wall of a closed pharmacy and slid down until she was sitting on the cold concrete knees, pulled in jacket wrapped tight. Across the street, a man slept in a doorway, his breath puffing white in the air. Someone had left a paper cup by his feet. It was empty. Laura closed her eyes. She thought of the envelope in her coat pocket, the one she hadn't opened in 3 days. She already knew what it said. She always did. Past due. Final notice. The words had a way of finding her, even when she didn't read them. She stood abruptly, as if motion alone could shake them off, and flagged down a cab. The driver glanced at her in the mirror, taking in the work jacket, the tired eyes. "Where to?" he asked. Laura hesitated. Then she said the address of the storage facility near the river. The one she had stopped paying for last month. The cab smelled like old fries and pine air freshener. The meter ticked. Laura watched it climb each click, a reminder that money usually disappeared faster than it arrived. The storage unit was dark, except for a single flickering light at the end of the row. Laura unlocked the door with hands that shook despite her effort to steady them. Inside were the things she had been able to throw away. Her father's tool chest, dented and heavy. A box of photographs she never looked at. A mattress wrapped in plastic, unused. She knelt and ran her fingers along the tool chest, feeling the grooves worn by years of work. Her father's hands had made those marks. Strong once, then slower, then not strong enough. Her phone buzzed again. This time she answered. Laura, her father, said, his voice rough, embarrassed by the weakness in it. "You don't have to come. I know you're busy." She swallowed hard. "I'm not," she said. He hesitated, then sighed. "They're coming Monday," he said. "The bank. I just wanted you to hear it from me." Laura pressed her forehead to the cold metal of the tool chest. Monday was too close. Monday was a wall. "I'll handle it," she said. The words slipped out before she could stop them. Silence on the line. Then quietly, "Don't do something you'll regret," her father said. Laura almost laughed. Almost. "I won't," she said, and hoped that was true. She left the storage unit and walked back toward the main road. A small grocery store glowed on the corner, lights harsh and white. She went in more out of habit than need. The clerk barely looked up. Laura grabbed a bottle of water and stood in line, the black card heavy against her ribs. When her turn came, she slid it across the counter without thinking. The machine beeped once. Approved. No pause. No question. Her stomach twisted. The clerk handed her the receipt, like it meant nothing. Laura took the water and stepped outside, hands cold, heart racing. It had worked. Too easily. She drank the water in one long pull, as if she could drown the feeling before it grew teeth. Across the street, 2 men argued loudly, shoving each other words sharp and ugly. Laura watched them, then turned away. She started walking again, faster now. She did not want to think. She wanted to act. Acting felt safer. The hospital rose ahead of her, all glass and steel windows lit like watchful eyes. She slowed at the entrance. Her reflection ghosted in the glass. She looked small, tired, easy to dismiss. Inside the lobby hummed with quiet urgency. Nurses moved with practiced speed. A man in a wheelchair stared at the floor. Laura approached the desk, heart pounding. "Billing," she said when asked. The clerk's smile was polite thin. Laura slid the card forward. The clerk's eyebrows lifted just slightly. "How much are we talking?" she asked. Laura named the amount from memory. It felt unreal saying it out loud. The clerk typed, nodded, and turned the screen for her to sign. Laura's hand shook as she wrote her name. The clerk looked at her, then really looked something like curiosity flickering across her face. "You're all set," she said. Laura left the hospital dizzy, the night air sharp in her lungs. She leaned against a railing and let herself breathe. One thing done. One fire out. The card felt less like a weapon now, more like a mirror. She checked the time. Still hours left. Too many. Her phone buzzed again, this time a text from a number she didn't recognize. Building security. Please confirm your whereabouts earlier tonight. Laura stared at the screen. Her chest tightened. Even now, even after. The system did not let go easily. She typed back slowly. On my way home. She slipped the phone away and looked up at the dark sky between buildings. Somewhere high above Marcus Hale was probably still awake, watching numbers, watching patterns waiting. Laura turned and walked toward the bus stop. She did not notice the man watching her from across the street, leaning against a lamp-post phone pressed to his ear, eyes sharp with interest. Yeah, he said quietly, gaze fixed on her retreating figure. She's moving. He smiled, thin and satisfied. Just like you thought. The bus lurched forward with a metallic groan, and Laura Bennett grabbed the pole before she lost her balance. The black card pressing against her ribs like a secret that refused to stay quiet. The windows were fogged, smeared with fingerprints, and rain turning the city into a blur of light and shadow. She took a seat near the back shoulders, hunched eyes forward, counting stops she did not need to count. Every vibration felt like a question. Every face felt like a verdict. Across town, Marcus Hale stood in a room that never slept. Monitors lined the wall, each one alive with motion. Transactions, cameras, access logs. He had built this nerve center himself, after the first betrayal, after he learned that trust, without verification, was just expensive hope. The black card had lit up the system like a flare, and he watched the data roll in with surgical focus. Grocery store, hospital billing, modest amounts, purposeful direction, no luxury, no delay. Marcus' jaw tightened. This was not impulse. This was triage. Pull her live feed, he said quietly. A technician hesitated. Sir, there's no warrant. Marcus didn't look at him. I'm not asking for audio, he said. Just context. The feed came up. A bus interior. Fluorescent lights. Laura's reflection in the glass doubled and ghosted. Marcus leaned closer. He had expected fear. He saw resolve. It unsettled him more than panic ever could. The man by the lamppost lowered his phone as the bus pulled away, rain dripping from the brim of his cap. His name was Evan Cross, and he had learned long ago that patience paid better than speed. He slipped the phone into his pocket and crossed the street, boots splashing through shallow puddles. He did not follow the bus. That would be sloppy. Instead, he turned the other way, already calculating angles, already seeing doors that had not opened yet. He had been waiting for a crack. The card had created one. Laura got off 3 stops early. She did that sometimes when her thoughts were too loud. Walking helped her line them up. The neighborhood was quieter here, old brick buildings and tired storefronts. A church with a sign that still promised Wednesday soup. A pawn shop with bars on the windows. She passed a man, arguing with an ATM, his voice hoarse with frustration. She did not slow. She felt watched, not in the cinematic way, in the practical way, the way you learn after too many nights alone. She ducked into a laundromat, the heat hitting her like a wall. Machines rattled. The air smelled of soap and damp fabric. An older woman folded clothes with sharp efficiency eyes, flicking up and back down. Laura took a seat on a plastic chair, heart pounding, and waited. For what she didn't know. After a minute, she stood left through the back door and emerged into an alley slick with rain. She walked fast, then faster, until the feeling eased. When she finally reached her apartment building, her hands were shaking again. Upstairs, she locked the door and leaned against it, breathing hard. The apartment was small, clean, too quiet. She set the card on the table and stared at it like it might move on its own. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She let it ring. Again. Then a text. We should talk about tonight. Laura's stomach dropped. She typed back, fingers stiff. Who is this? The response came fast. A friend. You don't have many, but you'll want this one. She did not reply. She turned the phone face down and paced. The card sat there black and patient. She thought of the storage unit, the tools, the letter. She opened the envelope at last. Final notice. The words blurred. She pressed her thumb into the paper until it creased anger, cutting through the fear like a clean blade. Enough. She grabbed her coat and the card and left again. The community college campus was dark except for the administrative building lights burning late. Laura slipped inside, heart hammering. The hallway smelled like cleaner and old books. A security guard looked up. Office closed, he said. Laura nodded, approached, and spoke softly. I need to settle an account, she said. Tonight. The guard eyed her, then the card, then shrugged. Billings down the hall. The clerk there was young, tired, grateful for something to do. Laura gave a name, a student ID, a balance. The clerk typed, frowned, then nodded. That clears it, she said. Laura signed the pen, squeaking. Another fire out. Another line crossed. Marcus watched the transaction post. Education. Tuition. He exhaled slowly. The room felt tighter. He glanced at the time. Hours left. Patterns forming. Not greed, not fear. Obligation. He thought of his own father, the man who taught him to read balance sheets before bedtime stories. The man who died believing Marcus would build something fair. Marcus closed his eyes for a second longer than necessary. Laura left the campus and nearly ran into Evan Cross as she rounded the corner. He stepped back, hands raised, smile easy. Sorry, he said. Didn't mean to scare you. She stared at him, pulse roaring. Do I know you? She asked. He shook his head. No, he said. But I know you. He let the words sit. Rain drummed on the pavement. Laura's fingers curled inside her sleeves. You should go, she said. Evan nodded, as if considering, then stepped aside. Be careful, he said. People notice sudden changes. She walked past him, without looking back, every instinct screaming. From an unmarked car across the street, Frank O'Neill watched the exchange through binoculars jaw set. He had been asked to keep an eye on Laura, not to intervene, just to watch. He lowered the glasses and muttered under his breath, Damn it. He recognized the look in Evan's eyes. He had seen it before. Predators wore many uniforms. Laura reached her building and locked the door behind her hands, shaking too hard to hide now. Her phone buzzed again, the unknown number. She answered without thinking. You're making interesting choices, Evan said. His voice was calm, almost kind. Stop calling me, she said. You don't get to tell me what to do. He chuckled softly. I don't want to, he said. I want to help you survive what's coming. Her breath caught. What's coming? She demanded. Silence stretched. Then, people don't hand out power without a reason, Evan said. And they don't like being surprised. The line went dead. Laura slid down the wall phone, clutched tight, the card heavy in her pocket. Somewhere above the city, Marcus Hale watched the feeds, watched the clock, and began to understand that the test he thought he was running had already drawn other players onto the board. The knock came just after 2 a.m, sharp and deliberate 3 strikes that landed with the confidence of someone who expected the door to open. Laura Bennett froze in the narrow kitchen, one hand gripping the edge of the counter, the other pressed flat against her chest, as if she could slow her heart by force. The city outside had gone quiet in that deceptive way that meant nothing good was awake. She did not move. The knock came again, firmer this time. "Laura," a man's voice called through the wood, calm practiced. "It's not the police." Across town, Marcus Hale watched the same hallway from two angles at once. One camera showed Laura's door the chipped paint, the flicker of the ceiling light. Another showed the stairwell empty. He leaned forward, fingers steepled, breath measured. He had ordered observation, not interference. That was the rule. He broke rules only when the math demanded it. The math was shifting. Laura stepped closer to the door, silent, listening. "You followed me," she said. "That's illegal." The man chuckled softly. "Following isn't illegal," Evan Cross replied. "What people do with what they learn is where the trouble starts." She slid the chain into place before cracking the door an inch. Evan stood there, empty-handed jacket damp from rain eyes, alert but not frantic. He looked like someone who belonged anywhere. That was what scared her. "Why are you here?" she asked. Evan lowered his voice. "Because your name just hit a short list," he said. "And the kind of people who keep that list don't knock." Laura's stomach tightened. "Get to the point," she said. Evan nodded. "You're being framed to flush out a leak," he said. "Or you're the bait to draw someone bigger into the open. Either way, when the clock runs out, someone gets burned. I don't think it should be you." She laughed once, bitter. "You think I don't know that she said? Everyone thinks they're smarter than the mop." Evan's gaze flicked past her shoulder, noting the sparseness of the apartment, the careful order. "I think you know exactly what's happening," he said. "Which is why you're dangerous." The word landed hard. Laura tightened her grip on the door. "Leave," she said. Evan held up his hands. "I will," he said. "But listen to me. Don't go back to the building. Not yet. Someone is watching the exits." He met her eyes. Not Hale. From the control room, a technician shifted uneasily. "Sir," he murmured. Marcus didn't respond. His eyes were locked on Evan's face, on the easy confidence, on the subtle glance toward the ceiling camera that suggested awareness without confirmation. Marcus felt a flicker of something old and unwelcome. Recognition. Laura closed the door and slid the chain free with shaking fingers. "You have 10 seconds, she said. Evan smiled thinly. "I don't need 10, he said. "I need 1. He leaned in voice, barely above a breath. The theft wasn't about money. Laura's breath caught. Evan straightened. "It was about leverage," he continued. "Someone needed proof your company could be breached without triggering alarms. They got it. Now they're selling certainty." He stepped back. "When the card expires, the story closes. Make sure you're not inside it." He turned and walked down the hall without waiting for a reply. Laura closed the door and locked it, hands trembling. She leaned her forehead against the wood, anger and fear tangling tight. Not about money, about leverage. She pictured the quiet corridors, the open doors, the systems humming like obedient animals. She pictured herself pushing a mop past it all invisible. She slid down the door until she was sitting on the floor. Marcus exhaled slowly. "Who is he?" he asked. The room stayed quiet. Finally, Frank O'Neill's voice crackled through the speaker. "Name's Cross," he said. "Consultant. Used to work risk for 3 firms that don't exist anymore." Marcus' jaw tightened. "And now," he said. "Now he works angles," Frank replied. "And he's good." Laura did not sleep. She brewed coffee. She did not drink. Paced the apartment, checked the locks twice. At 3:30, her phone buzzed. Unknown number again. This time, she answered. "You shouldn't have talked to him," Marcus Hale said. His voice was calm, controlled, the sound of authority stripped of ornament. Laura closed her eyes. "You're watching me," she said. I told you I would, Marcus replied. I didn't say you were alone. Her pulse thudded. Then stop him, she said. If you can see me, you can see him. Marcus paused. I can, he said, and I am. Silence stretched. You said the card was a choice, Laura said. Was that true? Marcus looked at the feed, at her drawn face, the defiance under the fear. Yes, he said. The consequences are not. At dawn, the city softened edges blurring under pale light. Laura showered, dressed, and stood in the mirror longer than usual. She saw a woman the world had decided was small. She straightened her shoulders. The card went back into her pocket. She left the apartment with purpose. She went to the credit union first. The line was short. The clerk recognized the name, eyes widening. You sure? She asked gently. Laura nodded. Do it, she said. The clerk typed, hesitated, then finished. Another account settled, another weight lifted. Outside, Laura breathed in cold air and felt something unexpected. Relief edged with resolve. Across the street, Evan Cross watched from a calf window, phone to his ear. She's moving faster, he said. No, came the voice on the other end. Let her. Evan smiled. You sure? He asked. She's not doing what we predicted. The voice chuckled. Then we learn it said. The line went dead. Marcus watched the same transaction post. He felt the test slipping from his control, reshaping itself into something sharper. He made a decision. Prep the conference room, he said, and pull Cross's file, everything. The technician nodded. Sir, he added carefully, if this escalates, Marcus, cut him off. It already has, he said. We're just behind. Laura reached the Riverwalk as the sun crept higher, water gray and restless. She leaned on the railing phone, buzzing again. A text this time from a blocked number. You think you're choosing. You're not. Laura typed back with steady fingers. Watch me. She slipped the phone away, the city waking around her, unaware that the quiet woman by the water had become the fulcrum of a much larger balance. The conference room smelled like fresh coffee and tension, a long glass table reflecting the city like a blade, and Laura Bennett felt it the moment she stepped inside. The door closed behind her with a soft click that sounded final. Marcus Hale stood at the far end of the room, jacket back on tie precise, again the version of him the world recognized. He did not offer her a seat. He did not offer her comfort. He watched her the way storms watch coastlines. You moved a lot of money this morning, he said. His voice carried no accusation, only fact. Laura met his eyes. I moved responsibility, she said. A flicker crossed his face, gone as quickly as it came. Sit, he said. She did. The chair was cold. The glass table reflected her hands, still fingers interlaced, nails clean and short. She had learned long ago how to look harmless without feeling small. On the screen behind Marcus, a timeline glowed. Transactions, locations, arrows. You paid debts that weren't legally yours, Marcus said. You closed accounts tied to people who could not authorize you to act on their behalf. Laura inhaled slowly. They asked me to, she said, and even if they hadn't, I would have. Marcus tilted his head. Why, he asked. Because it needed doing, she replied, and because you wanted to see what I'd choose. The words landed heavier than she intended. Marcus' gaze sharpened. This wasn't a morality play, he said. Laura smiled without humor. Everything as she said. You just don't like who it judges. A knock interrupted them. Before Marcus could answer, the door opened. Evan Cross stepped in, like he owned the floor rein, still clinging to his coat, smile measured. Apologies, he said lightly. Security waved me through. Frank O'Neill appeared behind him, jaw tight. He said he had clearance Frank muttered. Marcus' eyes never left Evan. You don't, Marcus said. Evan's smile widened. Then you should tighten your procedures, he said. But since we're all here, let's talk honestly. Laura's pulse quickened. She stood. I didn't invite him, she said. Evan raised a hand. I invited myself, he said, because this is the moment when stories get written without the subject present. Marcus gestured to the chair opposite Laura. Sit, he told Evan. Evan did, folding his hands like a man at confession. You ran a test, Evan said, glancing at the screen. You wanted to see how someone without power behaves when given it. Marcus didn't deny it. And you, Marcus replied, are here to sell fear. Evan shrugged. I sell certainty, he said. Fear is free. He tapped the screen. The breach proved something. Evan continued. Not that your systems are weak, that your culture is. Laura felt Marcus stiffen. Evan leaned back. You built a fortress, he said. But you forgot the humans inside it. Someone exploited that, not her. He nodded at Laura. Her invisibility. Laura's jaw tightened. Stop talking about me like I'm not here, she said. Evan met her gaze. Then tell him what you saw, he said softly. Laura hesitated. Marcus watched her, unreadable. The room seemed to lean in. I saw doors left open because no one thought it mattered, Laura said. Screens unlocked because people assumed night staff didn't understand them. I saw shortcuts treated like privileges. She looked at Marcus. I saw people who believed rules were for other people. Silence settled. Evan smiled thinly. That's leverage, he said. Proof that behavior not code is the weakest link. Marcus exhaled slowly. And you want to monetize that, he said. Evan didn't flinch. I want to prevent worse, he replied, by making examples now. Laura shook her head. By burning people, she said. Evan's eyes hardened. By educating markets, he countered. Marcus raised a hand. Enough, he said. He turned to Laura. Why didn't you take anything for yourself? He asked. The question cut through the room. Laura swallowed. Because it would have been easier, she said. And because easy has always cost me more. Marcus watched her carefully. What does that mean? He asked. Laura thought of the trailer, the cold mornings, the men who smiled while taking. It means I know what it feels like to be used, she said, and I won't pass that forward. Evan stood. This is touching, he said, but irrelevant. When the clock ends, the narrative closes. The market will decide what it learned. Marcu's voice dropped. You're not the market, he said. Evan paused, studying him. No, he said, but I know who is. Frank shifted unease etched into his face. Sir, he said quietly to Marcus, we've got movement. Marcus glanced at a tablet Frank handed him. His jaw tightened. They're early, Marcus said. Evan's smile returned. They always are, he said. Pressure reveals character. Laura felt the room tilt. Who, she asked. Marcus met her eyes. Regulators, he said, and competitors. Evan added, and one very interested buyer. Laura stood. You're turning this into a spectacle, she said to Evan. I am turning it into accountability, Evan replied. Laura stepped closer, voice steady. Then start with yourself, she said. Evan's smile faltered, just for a beat. Marcus made a decision. It showed in the way his shoulders squared. You're done here, he told Evan. Evan laughed softly. You can't stop what's already moving, he said. Marcus leaned in. Watch me, he said. He nodded to Frank. Escort him out. Evan raised his hands. For now, he said, backing toward the door. He met Laura's gaze. The story isn't over, he said. It's just changing authors. He left the door closing behind him with a sound that felt earned. The room exhaled. Marcus turned to Laura. You're not invisible anymore, he said. Laura nodded. I know, she replied. That's the risk. Marcus studied her, something like respect cutting through the steel. You have hours left, he said. Use them carefully. Laura picked up the black card from the table, its surface reflecting her face clearer than before. I am, she said. She walked out the city waiting, unaware that the balance had shifted again. The rain returned, without warning, thin and cold, streaking the sidewalk, as Laura Bennett stepped out of the building and pulled her jacket tighter, the black card still warm from her hand. The city felt different now, sharper, as if it had noticed her back. She did not look over her shoulder. She had learned that fear feeds on that movement. She walked fast, not running past storefronts, just beginning to wake for the day. A bakery vented warm air that smelled like yeast and sugar. A delivery truck hissed to a stop, metal clanging. Life indifferent and relentless. Laura checked the time. Less than half the window remained. Enough to finish something, not enough to hide. Across town, Marcus Hale watched her dot move across the map, the feed updating in quiet pulses. The regulators were circling. He could feel it in the calls that went unanswered, in the sudden politeness of people who had never been polite before. He had always believed control came from preparation. Now he was learning it also came from restraint. He muted the alerts and focused on one thing. Laura was not reacting. She was executing. Laura boarded a commuter train heading west, finding a seat by the window. The car was half full. Construction workers with coffee cups. A woman reading legal briefs, lips moving silently. A man, asleep with his head against the glass, breath fogging the pain. Laura watched her reflection slide over theirs, layered and transient. She pulled out her phone and opened the Notes app, scrolling through a list she had built over years. Names, numbers, obligations, the invisible infrastructure of survival. She tapped one and made a call. County clerk's office. A tired voice answered. Laura swallowed. I need to settle a lien, she said. The words felt heavy important. She gave an address, a parcel number. The clerk paused, fingers tapping keys. That'll take some time, she said. Laura closed her eyes. I'll wait, she said. The train rattled forward. Minutes stretched. Then payment received. The clerk said, surprised, You're clear. Laura exhaled slowly. Another door unlocked. Another chain removed. At the next stop, she disembarked and walked toward a low brick building with a flag out front. The social services office had not changed since she was a kid. Same scuffed floors, same smell of paper and resignation. She took a number and sat. Across from her, a woman rocked a stroller, gently eyes rimmed red. Laura looked away, not because she didn't care, but because she cared too much. When her number was called, she stood spine straight. I want to set up a trust, she said to the caseworker, a man with tired eyes and a careful tone. For minors? He raised an eyebrow. That's unusual, he said. Laura nodded. So is pretending people don't fall through cracks, she replied. He studied her, then nodded. We can do that, he said. Forms appeared, pens scratched. The card beeped again, obedient, silent. Laura signed her name steady. When she left, the air felt lighter, as if something unseen had shifted. Evan Cross watched the train station, from a parked car, coffee cooling in the cup holder. He had expected chaos. He was getting intention. That annoyed him. He made a call. She's not taking the bait, he said. The voice on the other end laughed softly. Then change the bait, it said. Evan glanced at the time. The clock's tight, he said. So is she, the voice replied. That's the point. Laura returned to the city as the afternoon bent toward evening. The sky darkened clouds, thick and low. She stopped at a legal aid office. She had passed 100 times without going in. The waiting room was full. She took a seat, knees bouncing despite herself. A volunteer offered her water. She accepted with a nod. When her turn came, she spoke plainly. "I need to file a report," she said, "about security practices that put people at risk." The lawyer listened, pen still eyes sharp. "Do you work there?" she asked. Laura hesitated, then shook her head. "Not anymore," she said. The lawyer leaned back. "Then you're protected," she said. Laura felt something crack open in her chest. Not relief, permission. Marcus watched the timestamp tick closer to 0. The room around him buzzed with updates he did not answer. He focused on Laura's last stop on the pattern he could no longer deny. She was not laundering money. She was laundering consequences, turning urgency into structure. He thought of the breach again of the open doors and quiet assumptions. He realized the test had inverted itself. It was no longer about what Laura would do with power. It was about what he would do when faced with her choices. Laura stepped back into the street as dusk settled, the city lights flickering on like constellations arranged by human hands. Her phone buzzed. "Unknown number." She answered. "You're almost out of time," Evan said. His voice was closer now, not in distance, but in intent. "Good," Laura replied. "So are you." He paused. "You filed something," he said. Laura smiled small and fierce. "I did," she said, "and I used my own name." Silence hummed on the line. "That complicates things," Evan said. "Truth does," Laura replied. She hung up and kept walking. The last stop was the one she had avoided all day, the storage facility by the river. She unlocked the unit and rolled the tool chest out, muscles straining. The night air was cold. She loaded it into a rented truck she had arranged hours earlier, then drove across town to a community workshop lit bright and alive. A man met her at the door, surprised. "You sure he asked?" Laura nodded. "Put it to use," she said. He grinned. "We will," he said. The card beeped one final time as she covered the donation. Laura felt the weight lift from her pocket. Almost done. Marcus stood alone in the control room as the clock hit 0. The card went dark. Alerts quieted. The city exhaled. He stared at the final ledger, the trail Laura had left behind, impossible to reduce to a headline. He felt something like awe, edged with responsibility. He picked up the phone and made a call he had not planned to make. "Prepare a statement," he said. "Full transparency." The voice on the other end hesitated. "Sir," it said, "that will cost Marcus cut in." "So will not doing it," he said. Laura returned to her apartment and sat on the floor back against the couch, exhaustion washing over her in heavy waves. The black card lay on the table, inert, just plastic now. Her phone buzzed once more. A text from Marcus. "Come to the building tomorrow morning, not as staff, as witness." Laura closed her eyes and let the quiet settle. For the first time in years, the silence did not feel like a threat. The boardroom filled before Laura Bennett arrived, the long table, crowded with faces that had learned to hide reaction behind posture, suits in shades of restraint, legal pads untouched, coffee cooling. When she stepped in, the room shifted in a way no one could quite name. Not because she looked powerful, because she did not look apologetic. She took the seat Marcus Hale had indicated, hands resting, flat eyes forward, breathing steady. The glass walls reflected the city, waking up traffic, inching like blood through veins. Marcus stood at the head of the table and did not begin with pleasantries. "We are here," he said, "because the last 24 hours revealed something our models missed." A man to his right adjusted his cufflinks. A woman on the left crossed her arms. The general counsel cleared his throat. "We should be careful about Marcus," raised a hand. The counsel stopped. The silence sharpened. Laura felt the weight of eyes slide toward her, and then away like heat-testing skin. She had been in rooms like this before usually invisible cleaning fingerprints from glass after decisions were made. Now she was inside the decision itself. She felt fear. She did not feed it. Marcus tapped the screen. A timeline appeared. Not transactions. Behaviors. This is not a financial incident, he said. This is a cultural one. A murmur rippled. We were breached. Marcus continued, because people believed rules were optional, when the consequences seemed abstract. He paused, then turned to Laura. Ms. Bennett saw it, he said. Not because she had access, but because she had proximity. A man scoffed softly. With respect, he said, She's not qualified to. Marcus cut him off. She is qualified, he said, because she lived with the impact of your shortcuts. Laura inhaled and spoke when Marcus nodded. I didn't come here to accuse anyone, she said. I came to name what I saw. Her voice carried calm and firm. Doors propped open, because convenience mattered more than policy. Screens left unlocked, because no one imagined someone like me could understand them. She met the scoffing man's eyes. I understood enough to know you were gambling with other people's lives. A chair scraped. This is inappropriate, someone muttered. Laura did not raise her voice. What's inappropriate, she said, is pretending harm only counts when it's expensive. The room stilled. Marcus watched unreadable as Laura continued. You asked what I would do with power, she said. I used it to close gaps you taught me to accept. She gestured to the screen. Those payments weren't generosity. They were repairs. A phone buzzed at the far end of the table. Evan Cross' name lit up on a device face down. Its owner went pale and pushed it away. Marcus noticed. He always did. We're done hiding, Marcus said. Full disclosure begins now. The general counsel leaned forward, alarmed. Marcus, he said quietly, this exposes us. Marcus nodded. Good, he said. Exposure heals infections. Across town, Evan Cross watched the press feeds light up a smile, tugging at his mouth despite himself. He had expected denials, delays, obfuscation. Instead, Marcus Hale had chosen confession. Evan felt irritation sharpen into something like respect. He dialed. You're burning leverage, he said, when Marcus answered. I'm burning lies, Marcus replied. They light the same. Evan exhaled. You realize this changes the market, he said. I realize it changes people, Marcus replied. He hung up. Back in the boardroom, Laura's phone vibrated in her pocket. She ignored it. The room leaned toward her, now attention shifting from skepticism to something less comfortable. Accountability. Marcus turned to the table. Ms. Bennett will stay, he said. She will help draft the corrective framework. The general counsel stiffened. As what he asked, Marcus did not hesitate. As authority, he said, earned. Laura felt the word land heavy and precise. Authority. She did not smile. She nodded once. I will do it, she said. On one condition. Heads lifted. Marcus raised an eyebrow. No more quiet exceptions, Laura said. No more special doors. If this is real, it applies to everyone. A beat. Then Marcus said, agreed. The meeting adjourned in a scatter of murmurs. Laura stood legs steady, despite the tremor beneath her skin. Frank O'Neill waited by the door, eyes bright. You did good, he said softly. Laura met his gaze. We did, she replied. Frank smiled, slow and proud. In the hallway, Marcus caught up to her. You knew Cross would push, he said. Laura nodded. He needs friction, she said. So do you. Marcus studied her, then laughed quietly. You're not wrong, he said. Neither are you finished. Laura stopped. I didn't do this to stay, she said. Marcus met her eyes. I didn't ask you to, he replied. I asked you to matter." Outside, reporters gathered questions sharp and eager. Laura stepped into the light. Beside Marcus, shoulders squared. Cameras flashed. "Ms. Bennett," someone called. "Why did you do it?" Laura considered the question. She thought of doors left open and hands learning weight. She answered plainly. "Because repair is louder than blame," she said. The words carried. They stuck. Later, alone in a quiet office that still smelled like new paint, Laura sat and let the day catch up to her. Her phone buzzed again. Evan's number. She answered. "You changed the board," he said. "I changed the rules," she replied. He chuckled softly. "Careful," he said. "That makes enemies." Laura looked out at the city sunlight, cutting clean lines across glass. "It also makes witnesses," she said. She ended the call and set the phone down. Marcus stood in the doorway, watching her for a moment before speaking. "There will be fallout," he said. Laura nodded. "There always is," she replied. Marcus hesitated. "When this settles," he said, "I want you to consider staying." Laura met his eyes. "When this settles," she said, "well, see who's still standing." Marcus smiled thin and real. Outside, the city kept moving, unaware that a line had been crossed and not erased. The fallout arrived before noon, sharp and coordinated, as if it had been waiting just out of sight. Laura Bennett felt it in the way phones stopped ringing mid-call, in the sudden hush that followed Marcus Hale down the hallway, in the eyes that tracked her now without looking away. The building had not changed. The people inside it had. Pressure does that. It rearranges priorities. It exposes fractures. The first subpoena hit Marcus' desk, while Laura was still reading draft language for the corrective framework. He didn't look up when Frank O'Neill placed it beside his coffee. "That was fast," Frank said. Marcus nodded. "Truth moves quicker than rumors," he replied. He glanced at Laura. "You ready?" he asked. Laura set the pages down carefully. "I've been ready for a long time," she said. Downstairs, the lobby filled with sound. Reporters, lawyers, a low electric buzz of anticipation. Laura stood at the edge of the glass balcony and watched it all unfold, her reflection layered over the scene like a double exposure. She felt the old instinct to step back to make room. She did not. She rested her hands on the rail and stayed. Evan Cross entered through a side door, coat, dry timing perfect. He moved with the confidence of someone who believed inevitability favored him. He spotted Laura and smiled, that same thin smile sharpened by curiosity now. "You're loud today," he said as he approached. Laura didn't turn. "You taught me," she said. Evan laughed softly. "I taught you leverage," he said. "You turned it into theater." Laura finally faced him. "I turned it into daylight," she replied. Evan's eyes flicked to the cameras gathering below. "Daylight burns," he said. Laura's voice stayed level. "So does rot," she said. Marcus joined them, presence cutting clean lines through the noise. "We're done," he said to Evan. Evan raised an eyebrow. "With me?" he asked. Marcus nodded. "With the idea that accountability can be outsourced," he said. Evan studied Marcus for a long moment. "You're making this personal," he said. Marcus' jaw tightened. "No," he replied. "I'm making it permanent." Evan smiled again, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Careful," he said. "Markets, remember." Marcus leaned closer. "So do people," he said. The press conference began without ceremony. Marcus spoke first voice, steady words, chosen with care, that came from conviction rather than counsel. He named failures. He named fixes. He named responsibility. Laura stood beside him, not as symbol, not as shield, but as witness. When questions turned sharp, she answered only when asked plainly, without polish. A reporter leaned forward. "Ms. Bennet," she said, "why should anyone believe this isn't cosmetic?" Laura met her gaze. "Because cosmetics don't hurt this much," she said. The room went quiet. A hand shot up. "Are there arrests coming?" a voice called. Marcus answered. "Investigations," he said. Plural. Laura felt the words settle like a promise. She saw Evan watching from the back, calculating exits. He caught her eye and tipped his head, acknowledgement edged with warning. Afterward, the building felt hollowed out, as if something essential had been removed along with the noise. Laura retreated to the quiet office Marcus had assigned her, the one with no view and thick walls. She sat and let her hands shake for a moment, just long enough to release the tension. Then she opened the framework again. Lines became actions. Actions became safeguards. She worked. The call came late afternoon. An unknown number. She answered. "They're coming for you," the voice said, distorted but familiar. "Evan." "They always do," Laura replied. "You made enemies," he said. Laura smiled small and steady. "I made boundaries," she said. "Different thing." Evan exhaled. "You think Hale will protect you," he said. "I think I don't need him," to Laura replied. She ended the call and set the phone down face first. Marcus found her an hour later, standing by the windowless wall, reviewing notes. He called. Marcus said. Laura nodded. "I know," she replied. "He wants me scared." Marcus studied her. "Are you?" he asked. Laura considered. "I'm alert," she said. "That's not the same." Marcus nodded once. "Good," he said, "because this next part won't be clean." Laura met his eyes. "None of the important parts are," she said. As evening settled, a quiet spread through the building that felt earned. Employees lingered in small clusters, talking without whispering. Someone laughed, surprised by the sound. Laura walked the floors, not inspecting, not correcting, just listening. She stopped at a door she had once cleaned around not inside. It was open now. She closed it gently. Outside, Evan Cross sat in his car, watching the lights change, phone buzzing with updates he did not answer. He felt the familiar thrill of a game turning against him. He smiled despite himself. "Interesting?" he murmured. He started the engine and drove into traffic, already thinking 3 moves ahead. Laura returned to her office and packed her bag. As she reached for the door, Marcus spoke behind her. "Stay," he said. Laura turned. "Tonight," he clarified. "Just tonight." She searched his face and saw not control, but concern. She nodded. "All right," she said. They stood in silence for a moment, the building settling around them. "You didn't have to stand there," Marcus said, finally. "You could have stayed hidden." Laura looked at the wall at the absence of windows. "Hidden keeps you safe," she said. "It doesn't keep you honest." Marcus exhaled slowly. "You're changing this place," he said. Laura shook her head. "It's changing itself," she replied. "I just stopped cleaning around the mess." As night deepened, the city pulsed on, unaware of the lines redrawn within one glass tower. Laura sat back down, opened her notebook, and wrote one sentence at the top of a clean page. "Accountability begins where excuses end." She underlined it once and kept working, knowing the hardest part was still ahead and choosing to stay anyway. The building did not sleep that night, but it breathed differently slower, as if it had learned the cost of panic. Laura Bennet sat alone at the long table in the ethics suite, a room that had not existed 48 hours earlier. The walls were bare. The lights were soft, the quiet pressed in, not empty, but attentive. She rolled her shoulders, once flexed her fingers, and kept reading. Outside the glass, the city moved in layers. Sirens far off, a train horn somewhere south, wind slipping through alleys. Laura tracked the sounds the way she always had, grounding herself in the physical world. Words on paper mattered, But so did the weight of a door, the way a latch caught the sound a hinge made when it lied. She marked a paragraph and paused, listening. Across the floor, Marcus Hale stood at the window in his office jacket, draped over a chair he did not plan to use. His phone buzzed and stopped. Buzzed again. He let it. He had spent years answering, first believing speed equaled strength. Tonight, he chose delay. He watched the city and thought about consequence. Not risk. Consequence. The difference felt newly important. Laura's phone vibrated once a single pulse. A message from Frank O'Neill. "You okay?" she typed back. "Working." Frank replied a moment later. "Proud." Laura closed her eyes briefly and let the word land. It steadied her more than she expected. At 2:15 in the morning, the fire alarm chirped once and went silent. Laura looked up, heart rate ticking higher, then relaxed when the system reset. A test, she thought. Everything was being tested now. She stood and walked the corridor, checking doors, listening to the building tell the truth about itself. Halfway down the hall, she heard voices. They were low, controlled, meant not to carry. She slowed breath shallow and stood still. Evan Cross' voice slid into focus, smooth as oil. "You're late," he said. Another voice answered, older, sharper. "Because you told me not to rush it," said. Laura's pulse climbed. She edged closer, stopping short of the corner. "Your timing cost me leverage," Evan said. "Your spectacle cost me discretion." The older voice chuckled. "You wanted proof," it said. "You got it." Laura felt the floor vibrate faintly a passing elevator. She leaned into the wall, careful not to move. "You didn't say Hale would flip the board," Evan said. "He didn't flip the other." Voice replied. He exposed. A pause, which is worse, Evan said. Laura closed her eyes, then opened them, mind-sharpening. This was it. Not money, not the card. This! She stepped around the corner and let them see her. Evan turned, first surprise flashing before control returned. The other man did not. He wore a tailored coat and the look of someone accustomed to rooms bending around him. "Good evening," Laura said. Her voice did not shake. "You're trespassing." Evan smiled thinly. "We were just leaving," he said. Laura didn't look at him. She met the older man's eyes. "You're not," she said. He studied her, assessing weight and cost. "Who are you?" he asked. Laura answered without hesitation. "I'm the person who will remember this," she said. "And so will the cameras." Evan's jaw tightened. The older man smiled slow and appraising. "Interesting," he said. "You think memory is power?" Laura nodded. "It is," she said, "especially when it's shared." The elevators dinged behind them. Footsteps approached, measured and certain. Marcus Hale stepped into view, Frank O'Neill at his shoulder. The older man turned, recognition flickering. "Marcus," he said, "you should have called." Marcus's voice was calm. "I did," he said. "You didn't answer." Frank's hand rested near his radio, not touching, making a point. The older man's gaze moved between them. "You're making a mistake," he said. Marcus shook his head. "I am correcting one," he replied. He nodded toward Laura. She heard enough. Evan scoffed. "You're going to hang your future on a cleaner's testimony," he said. Laura didn't flinch. "On evidence," she corrected, "and on patterns." She gestured to the ceiling. "You forgot the building watch's back." Silence pressed in, heavy and brittle. The older man exhaled through his nose. "You always were sentimental," he said to Marcus. Marcus met his gaze. "You always were careless," he replied. "This ends now." The older man straightened, dignity rearranging itself. "Not like this," he said. Marcus nodded. "Like this?" he said again. Security arrived, swift and quiet. The older man offered his wrists without protest. Evan hesitated, then followed suit, eyes never leaving Laura. "You changed the game," he said softly. Laura held his gaze. "You taught me how," she replied. When they were gone, the corridor felt longer, emptier. Laura leaned against the wall and let the adrenaline ebb. Marcus turned to her. "You didn't have to step out," he said. Laura shrugged. "Someone had to name the room," she said. Frank smiled, brief and fierce. "Good timing," he said. Laura met his eyes. "It wasn't luck," she said. Dawn crept in through high windows, pale and honest. The building settled into a new quiet, the kind that follows truth. Laura returned to the ethics suite and sat, exhaustion finally claiming its due. She closed her notebook and rested her palms on the cover, grounding herself in the physical fact of it. Done for now. Marcus found her there an hour later with 2 cups of coffee. He set one down within reach. "It's over," he said. Laura looked up. "It's begun," she replied. Marcus nodded, a small smile tugging at his mouth. "You were right," he said, "about boundaries." Laura took the cup, warmth seeping into her hands. "You were right too," she said, "about choice." Marcus studied her. "Stay," he said, not as an order, not as a plea. Laura considered the word, its weight and shape. "I will," she said, "but not alone." Marcus met her gaze. "Never again," he said. Outside, the city woke fully unaware that a quiet reckoning had taken place in a glass tower by the river. Laura took a sip of coffee and felt the day begin, knowing the final decision would not be hers alone. And that was the point. Morning light washed the upper floors in a pale gold that made even the sharp edges look forgiving, and Laura Bennett stood by the window of the ethics suite, watching the city wake as if it were learning a new rhythm. The night had left its mark. Not chaos. Order. The kind that follows truth when it finally lands, and no one rushes to sweep it away. She rolled her shoulders once, steadying herself, and turned back to the table where the framework lay, finished signatures waiting like quiet witnesses. Across the hall, Marcus Hale ended a call and set his phone down without ceremony. He looked older than he had a week ago, but lighter too, as if something tight in his chest had finally loosened. He walked to the conference room, where a handful of department heads waited, faces drawn, eyes alert. No speeches, no spin. "This is how we operate now," he said, placing the document at the center of the table. "Read it, live it, or leave." No one laughed. No one argued. Chairs scraped. Pens moved. The sound of commitment is rarely loud. Laura moved through the building afterward, not inspecting, not correcting, just present. She stopped by the break room, where Frank O'Neill poured coffee, with hands that shook less than they used to. He slid a mug toward her. "You did something real," he said. Laura wrapped her fingers around the heat. "We did," she replied. Frank nodded, satisfied. "I'm retiring," he said, casual as weather. Laura looked up. When she asked, "Soon," he said. "But not before we name the thing." He tapped the mug. Dignity. The board approved the changes by noon. The vote was not unanimous, but it was enough. Those who resisted gathered their things quietly. The building watched them go without applause. Laura returned to her office and opened a fresh notebook. She wrote the date. She wrote the word "begin" and underlined it once. She thought of the first night she had walked these halls with a mop, and a lowered gaze of how invisibility had felt safer than attention. She understood now that safety without voice was just another kind of risk. Evan Cross's name appeared in the news later that afternoon, framed by language that tried to sound neutral and failed. Laura read it without satisfaction. Accountability was not revenge. It was repair. She closed the article and turned back to work. The system would test itself again. It always did. What mattered was who stood ready when it did. Marcus found her near evening jacket, off sleeves, rolled a posture he hadn't worn in years. "I spoke to the board," he said. Laura nodded. "I know," she replied. The floor shifted. Marcus smiled faintly. "You feel that too," he said. Laura met his eyes. "I live in it," she said. He leaned against the door frame, considering. "I want you to lead this," he said. "Formally." Laura didn't rush her answer. She thought of the trust she had set up, the doors she had closed, the ones she had opened on purpose. "I will," she said, "with guardrails." Marcus nodded. "Name them," he said. Laura's voice was steady. Transparency, independence, protection for people who speak when it's hard. Marcus didn't hesitate. "Done," he said. The evening settled soft and blue over the river. Employees drifted out in small groups, talking without whispering. Laura walked to the window and watched the lights blink on across the city, each one a life, intersecting with another unseen until it wasn't. She felt tired. She felt grounded. She felt ready. Later, alone again, she packed her bag and paused, taking in the room. It was still spare. It would stay that way. Symbols age quickly. Practices last. She turned off the light and stepped into the hall, the quiet following her like a promise kept. Outside, the air was cool and clean. Laura stood on the steps and breathed, really breathed the sound of traffic, a steady pulse. Marcus joined her hands in his pockets, gaze forward. They didn't speak for a moment. Then he said, "You didn't take the easy path." Laura nodded. "I took the honest one," she replied. Marcus smiled, not the practiced version, but the one that belonged to a man who had stopped pretending. Strength meant distance. "Stay," he said, not as an order, not as a plea. Laura looked at the city and then at him. "I am," she said. "And so are you." The days that followed moved with purpose. Training replaced memos. Open doors replaced shortcuts. Reports came in and were addressed without theater. Laura listened more than she spoke. When she did speak, people leaned in. The building learned to listen back. Weeks later, a small plaque appeared near the elevators, simple and unadorned. It read, "Accountability lives here. No names, no dates." Laura passed it on her way in one morning and smiled once privately. She took the stairs. If this story moved, you carry it forward. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and comment 3 words that matter to you: integrity over comfort.